Ilya's rook did not expect anything strange when he powered up his old salvage ship that morning. The scanners were weak, the hull had scars from too many near misses, and the engines made a sound like they were always arguing with each other. Still, the ship flew, and that was enough for him. Out here on the edge of map space, survival mattered more than comfort. He was alone, as usual. Humans rarely worked this far out anymore. The big companies had moved on to safer systems, and the military patrols followed trade routes instead of forgotten wreck zones. Ilya's stayed because forgotten places still had value. Broken ships meant spare parts. Abandoned battlefields meant old tech. Old tech meant credits, and credits meant another month of fuel and food. He guided the ship slowly through a wide field of metal debris. Long ago, two fleets had fought here. Nobody remembered why. Nobody cared anymore. The ships were torn open like dead animals, frozen forever in silent motion. Ilya's moved carefully, using small bursts from the thrusters. One wrong move and a sharp piece of hull could tear his ship apart. His scanners picked up faint energy signals, nothing strong. Probably a cracked power core or a drifting beacon that never shut down. Ilya's sighed and adjusted his course. Even weak signals were worth checking. Sometimes weak meant hidden. As he moved closer, the signal changed. It was not steady. It pulsed slow and uneven like a heartbeat. Ilya's frowned. That was strange. He zoomed the scanners in and filtered the noise. The signal was coming from something small, not a ship, more like a pod, an escape pod. Someone survived, he muttered to himself. That made no sense. The battle had happened decades ago. Everyone knew that. Escape pods did not last that long. Their power ran out. Their air ran out even faster. And yet the signal was there. Ilya's hesitated. His hands rested on the controls, still and unsure. A working escape pod meant danger. It could be a trap. Pirates sometimes used fake distress signals. Worse, it could belong to one of the major empires. Helping the wrong person could get a human killed without questions. He thought of turning away. Then the signal pulsed again, weaker this time. Ilya's cursed under his breath and pushed the ship forward. "I'm an idiot," he said quietly. The escape pod came into view. It was badly damaged. One side was blackened, melted by weapon fire. The surface markings were alien, smooth and curved, nothing like human design. The pod was spinning slowly, barely controlled. Ilya's locked on with a tractor beam and pulled it in. The pod shuddered as it connected to his ship. Warning lights flashed across his console. "Easy, easy," he whispered like the ship could hear him. He sealed the airlock and brought the pod inside the small cargo bay. Once the pressure equalized, he opened the pod with a manual override. The metal hissed as it split apart. Inside, someone lay motionless. She was not human. Her skin was a soft silver blue, marked with faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly. Her hair was long and dark, floating slightly as the pod's gravity failed. She wore clothing that looked more ceremonial than practical, torn and burned in several places. Blood, dark and almost black, stained the fabric. Ilya's froze. Aliens were not rare in the galaxy. He had seen many kinds, but this one was clearly important. The clothing alone said that. The materials were expensive, woven with energy threads he recognized from old databanks. Imperial grade. His first thought was to close the pod and eject it. His second thought was that she was still breathing. Barely. Ilya swore again and moved fast. He pulled her out carefully, surprised by how light she was. He carried her to the med bunk in the corner of the ship. The ship's medical system was basic, meant for humans, but it could stabilize most life forms if given enough data. The scanner beeped wildly as it tried to identify her species. "Come on," Ilya said. "Work with me." The screen flashed warnings: unknown biology, critical condition, internal damage, oxygen deprivation. Ilya's did not understand half of it, but he did what he could. He sealed wounds, adjusted oxygen levels, and injected broad-spectrum stabilizers. He worked quietly, focused, blocking out the fear crawling up his spine. Helping her was a crime in at least 3 empires, maybe more. When he finished, he stepped back and wiped sweat from his forehead. His heart was racing. The ship felt smaller than ever. "She'll live," the med system finally said in a flat voice. "Probability 63%. "That's good enough," Ilya's replied. He sat down heavily in the pilot's chair and stared at the stars outside the viewport. His hands were shaking now that the danger had slowed. "What did I just do?" he asked the empty ship. No answer came. He stayed on the edge of the debris field, engines quiet, lights dimmed. If anyone was searching, he did not want to be seen. He checked long-range scanners again and again. Nothing showed up. No patrols, no hunters. Still, he knew that would not last. People did not just lose someone like her. Hours passed. The ship was silent except for the soft hum of life support. Elias ate a simple meal from a ration pack, barely tasting it. His eyes kept drifting to the med bunk. She had not woken yet. Her breathing was steadier now, but her face was tense, like she was trapped in a bad dream. Elias wondered who she was. A noble, a diplomat, maybe royalty. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter," he said softly. "You're a person, that's enough." That was how his parents had raised him, back on a dusty colony world no one remembered. Help when you can, walk away when you must. Do not measure kindness like a trade. The med system chimed. Patient regaining consciousness. Elias stood slowly and moved closer. Her eyes opened. They were bright gold, sharp and focused even through pain. They locked onto his face instantly. Her body tensed and she tried to sit up, failing with a small gasp. "Easy," Elias said quickly. "You're safe, don't move." She stared at him, breathing hard. Her gaze flicked around the room, taking in the small ship, the human tools, the worn metal walls. Confusion crossed her face, followed by something like fear. She spoke, her voice weak but clear. The language was unfamiliar, musical, and formal. Elias raised his hands slowly. "I don't understand," he said calmly, "but you're safe. I pulled you out of an escape pod. You were hurt." She watched him closely, as if weighing every word. Then she spoke again, slower this time, activating a small device at her throat. The ship's translator struggled, then stabilized. "You are human," she said. "Yeah," Elias replied. "That's right." Her eyes widened slightly. "You rescued me," she said. "Why?" The question caught him off guard. "Because you needed help," he answered honestly. She stared at him like he had said something impossible. "That is not an answer," she said. Elias shrugged. "It's the only one I've got." Silence filled the space between them. She studied him, her expression unreadable. Slowly, she relaxed back into the bunk. "My name is Thalira," she said at last. "You have risked much." "Probably," Elias said, "but don't worry about it. Once you're better, I'll take you somewhere safe." Her gaze sharpened again. "You do not know who I am?" she said. "Nope," Elias replied, "and I don't need to." She looked genuinely stunned now. "You did not search my pod?" she asked. "I checked for survivors," Elias said. "That's all." She fell silent again, clearly struggling to understand him. "You could demand payment," she said carefully. "Protection, influence." Elias shook his head. "I'm not interested," he said. "I just salvage junk. I don't want trouble." Trouble, he thought, had already arrived. Thalira closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with new intensity. "You have already earned my debt," she said quietly. Elias frowned. "I don't want a debt." "In my culture," she said, "that choice is not yours." Before he could respond, alarms blared across the ship. Elias spun back to the controls. Multiple contacts appeared on the scanner, fast, armed. His blood ran cold. "They found you," he said under his breath. Thalira sat up despite the pain. "They were hunting me," she said. "If they find you, they will kill you." Elias cursed. "Well," he said, hands flying over the controls, "let's not let that happen." He powered up the engines and launched the ship forward, diving deeper into the wreck field. Metal fragments flew past the viewport. Enemy ships followed, sleek and deadly, their weapons glowing. Elias flew like his life depended on it, because it did. Laser fire tore through space, slicing apart old wrecks. Explosions lit the darkness. Elias twisted and turned, using debris as cover. His ship shook with every near miss. "They're faster," he said through clenched teeth. Thalira watched the display, her face calm despite the chaos. "They expect fear," she said. "They will not expect what you are about to do." Elias glanced at her. "And what's that?" She smiled faintly. "Survive," she said. Elias grinned despite himself and pushed the engines beyond safe limits. The ship screamed, but it held together. He dove through a narrow gap between two massive wrecks, the pursuing ships unable to follow without slowing. He did not stop until the scanners showed nothing but empty space. When he finally cut the engines, he slumped back in his seat, exhausted. "We made it," he said softly. Thalira looked at him with something new in her eyes, respect. "You did not abandon me," she said. "Not my style," Elias replied. Outside, the stars burned quietly, unaware that something small and human had just changed the path of empires. And Elias Rook still had no idea what he had truly rescued. Elias Rook did not sleep after the chase. He tried, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw the scanner lights, the streak of weapons fire, and the hard truth that someone with money and power had decided he was in their way. His ship drifted in a quiet patch of space far from the wreck field. He kept the engines cool and the lights low. The hull still smelled faintly of overheated metal. Every few minutes he checked the sensors again, even though he already knew there was nothing nearby. Thalira rested on the med bunk, but she was not truly resting. Elias could tell by the way her eyes followed his movements when she thought he was not looking. She was careful, controlled, the way trained people were careful. She did not move like a civilian. She moved like someone raised around danger. Elias finally spoke because the silence felt heavy. "You should drink some water," he said, holding up a pouch from his supplies. "It's filtered, safe." Thalira watched it like it might be a trick. Then she reached out slowly and took it. Her fingers were long and thin, and her nails had a natural metallic shine. She sipped, then paused as if thinking. "You have limited resources," she said. "I'm not a luxury cruiser," Elias replied. "Just a salvage ship." "You saved me with this," she said, looking around at the small cabin, the worn panels, the patched wiring. "Why?" Elias gave a small shrug. "You keep asking that." "Because it matters," Thalira said. Elias leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Where I'm from, if someone's dying and you can help, you help. It's not a puzzle." Thalira stared at him like he was a strange kind of math problem that refused to balance. "In my space," she said carefully, "nothing is done without a reason." "That sounds exhausting," Elias said. A faint expression crossed her face, almost like amusement, but it vanished quickly. "You do not know what they will do to you for this," she said. "You are human. You do not belong to the treaty lines that protect the major houses." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm starting to get that." "You should leave me," Thalira said, her voice even. "Now, while you still can." Elias stared at her for a long moment. "No," he said. She blinked. "Why?" "Because that's worse," Elias replied. "I didn't pull you out just to toss you back when things got hard." Thalira's jaw tightened. "Your morals will get you killed." Elias smiled without humor. "Yeah, I've heard that before." He turned back to the cockpit and pulled up a map of nearby systems. There were a few options, none of them perfect. A trading relay station sat on the border of neutral territory, a place where different species exchanged goods under strict rules. The station's security was strong enough to discourage casual attacks. It was not safe, but it was safer than drifting alone. Elias set a course. "We'll go there," he said. "You can get medical help and a ride to wherever you need to go, then I disappear." Thalira's eyes narrowed. "You think it will be that simple?" Elias did not answer because part of him knew she was right. The ship's engines warmed and the stars stretched into thin lines as the ship entered jump travel. The cabin lights flickered, then steadied. Elias sat at the controls, hands calm now, but his mind kept moving. He was not blind. He understood the basic rules of the galaxy. Humans were tolerated in many places, trusted in some, disliked in others. They were seen as useful but small, too divided to become a real threat, too stubborn to fully obey anyone else. Most humans lived on edges and trade routes, working as pilots, miners, mechanics, and sometimes soldiers for hire. Elias had chosen salvage because it was quiet. He did not want politics. He did not want flags or oaths. He wanted space, freedom, and enough credits to live. Now an alien noble, maybe more than noble, was sitting in his ship like a storm waiting to happen. During the jump, Thalira moved carefully to the cockpit and stood behind him. Elias felt her presence before he saw her reflection in the screen. "You fly alone," she said. "Yeah," Elias replied. "Do you have no crew?" "No need," he said. "I like quiet." Thalira looked at the control panels, at the manual switches, at the old-fashioned physical levers. "Your ship is primitive. It gets me where I'm going," Elias said. "That is not what I mean," she said. "It is old, yes, but it is honest. It does not hide its workings." Elias chuckled. "It's too cheap to hide anything." Thalira did not smile. "You are not afraid to show weakness." Elias glanced at her. "I'm afraid all the time. I just don't let it decide everything." She studied him in silence. Then she asked the question that felt like a knife sliding into a quiet room. "What did you think I was when you saw me in the pod?" Elias slowed his breathing. "I thought you were someone important." "And that did not stop you?" "No," he said. "Even if it meant you would make enemies," she pressed. Elias leaned back in his seat. "Look, I'm not trying to be some hero. I couldn't leave you there." Thalira's voice became softer, but sharper too. "Where I come from, that choice is not common." Elias turned slightly to face her. Where you come from, what happens to people who get hurt and aren't important? Thalira did not answer right away. Her eyes lowered, and for the first time he saw something like shame. They are helped if it benefits someone, she said at last, or ignored if it does not. Elias felt anger rise in him, not at her, but at the idea itself. That's wrong, he said. Thalira tilted her head. Wrong is a human word. It's everybody's word, Elias replied. Thalira watched him for a long time. Then she looked away, like she had just seen something she did not have a name for. Hours later, the ship dropped out of jump near the relay station. It was huge, a layered metal ring built around a central spine. Lights glittered across it like a floating city. Ships of many shapes and sizes moved around it, docking and leaving in steady patterns. Elias felt a small wave of relief. Crowds meant cover. He moved toward a docking lane and sent the station his registration codes. The system accepted them after a pause. The docking clamp engaged with a heavy vibration. All right, Elias said, standing. We keep it simple. You stay in the ship while I arrange supplies and check the public network. If you have contacts, you can message them from here without broadcasting too loudly. Thalira's eyes sharpened. I will not hide while you take risks, Elias sighed. You're injured. I can walk, she said. That's not the point, Elias replied. The point is, if anyone recognizes you, we both become targets. Thalira looked at him with a calm that felt almost dangerous. You think hiding me is an act of control? Elias blinked. No, it's an act of survival. She stepped closer, her posture straight despite the pain she must still feel. Then hear this, Elias Rook. I am not a passenger. I am the reason they hunted your ship. If danger comes, it will come because of me. Elias held her gaze. Okay, then we do this together. For a moment her eyes softened. They left the ship with Thalira wearing a simple cloak Elias had found in his storage locker. It was too large for her, but it hid her face and the glowing lines on her skin. Elias wore his usual jacket and boots, trying to look like a bored worker with nothing interesting to steal. The station's interior was loud, not with noise exactly, but with movement. Signs flickered in different languages. Scents from food stalls mixed into a strange cloud. People, humans and non-humans, moved in streams, buying, selling, talking, arguing. Security drones floated near the ceiling, scanning faces and cargo tags. Elias kept his steps steady and led Thalira toward a quieter corridor. You've been here before? Thalira asked. Once, Elias said. It's a good place to disappear for a few hours, not forever. They reached a public terminal station with screens that offered network access for a fee. Elias paid with a credit chip and began searching local feeds for alerts. He looked for any mention of a missing dignitary or a ship chase near the wreck zone. He found nothing at first, then a small rumor thread hidden in a private trader channel. A vessel had been destroyed days ago near the border. It belonged to a powerful house. No survivors were confirmed. Some claimed an escape pod had been taken by a human salvage ship. Others laughed and said it was a myth. Elias swallowed. Thalira leaned closer to the screen, reading faster than he could. They are spreading confusion, she said quietly. That means they fear certainty. Meaning? Elias asked. Meaning they do not want the public to know I live, she said. Elias turned slightly. So you are important. Thalira's silence was answer enough. Elias exhaled. Princess? Thalira's shoulders stiffened under the cloak. He lowered his voice. I'm guessing, based on your clothes, the tech, the way people chased you like you mattered. Thalira looked at the crowd as if watching invisible enemies. Yes, she said. I am Thalira of the Luminari Imperial Line. Elias felt the station tilt a little, like his brain had decided the universe needed to shake. That's big, he said. It is dangerous, she corrected. Elias stared at her. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have made choices for fear, she said, and her eyes met his. And I needed to know what you were before I placed your life beside mine. Elias frowned. You tested me. Thalira did not deny it. He rubbed his face with one hand. That's not fair. Fairness is a luxury, she said. Then after a pause, but you passed. Elias almost laughed. Great, I passed. Now what? Thalira's voice became very quiet. Now I must decide how to repay what cannot be repaid. Elias stiffened. No, stop. I don't want repayment. I want you safe and me out of this. Thalira watched him carefully. You think a debt is a chain. Isn't it? Elias asked. In my culture, Thalira said, a debt is a law. A debt is a structure that holds the universe together. Elias leaned in close, keeping his voice low. I'm from a small human colony. If someone saves you, you say thank you and you try to be decent back. That's it, no law, no chains. Thalira's eyes flashed. You saved the heir of an empire. I saved a person, Elias insisted. Her gaze held his like gravity. That is why you confuse the galaxy. Elias opened his mouth to reply, but something changed in the air. The crowd in the corridor shifted. People stopped talking. Heads turned toward a row of screens above the main plaza. A news alert flashed across them in bold symbols, then translated into several languages. Unidentified human vessel linked to royal incident. Reward offered for information. Approach with caution. Elias felt his stomach drop. They posted it, he whispered. Thalira's hands tightened under the cloak. They are moving faster than I hoped. Elias grabbed Thalira's arm gently and pulled her away from the plaza. They moved through side corridors toward the docking areas. Elias kept his head down, but he could feel eyes on him now, some curious, some greedy. They reached a maintenance passage and paused beside a wall panel. Elias breathed hard. We need to leave. Thalira nodded. Yes. Elias tapped his wrist communicator, trying to access his ship remotely. The station's network lagged. Too many users, too much traffic. He forced the command again. The screen flashed. Access DELAYD. DOCKING review in progress. Elias stared. What does that mean? Thalira asked. It means someone flagged my ship, Elias said, voice tight. They're checking it. Thalira's eyes narrowed. Then we cannot return normally. Elias looked down the passage, mind racing. There are service tunnels, old ones. If we can reach the docking ring from below, maybe? A loud voice echoed from the plaza behind them. Not words Elias understood, but the tone was sharp and official. Security. Elias cursed softly. They're moving already. Thalira stepped forward. Elias Rook. Yeah, he said, glancing back. Thalira pulled back part of her cloak and revealed the glowing lines along her neck. They brightened like a slow sunrise under her skin. Elias blinked. What are you doing? I am invoking a right, she said. Elias' heart pounded. Thalira, now is not the time for. It is exactly the time, she replied. She lifted her hand, palm upward. A small ring sat on one finger, almost hidden before. It pulsed with light. This is an imperial signet, she said. It does not only mark blood, it marks authority. Elias swallowed. Okay. Thalira's voice became firm, almost ceremonial. In the old laws of my people, there is a binding called the life debt. It is rare, it is sacred, it can only be given, not taken. Elias shook his head quickly. No, I don't want. Thalira stepped closer, and her eyes held his with a strange intensity. You already have it, she said. I am only naming it so the universe cannot pretend it does not exist. Elias stared. I don't understand what you're saying. Thalira reached out and touched 2 fingers to the center of his chest, just above his heart. The touch was light, but Elias felt a sudden warmth spread through him, like the ship's engines had ignited inside his ribs. The signet ring glowed brighter. I, Thalira of the Luminari line, she said, voice steady, declare Elias Rook under my protection by ancient right. His life is counted with mine. His safety is my duty. His harm is my enemy. Elias' breath caught. Thalira. She pulled her hand back and the glow faded, but not completely. The lines on her skin remained brighter than before, like they had been awakened. Elias felt different, not stronger, not smarter. Just marked as if something invisible had written his name into a book he did not know existed. What did you do? He asked. Thalira's face was pale, as if the act had taken energy from her. I made it impossible for my empire to deny you. Elias looked around, panicked. That doesn't help if we get caught right now. It will, Thalira said, because even if my enemies try to kill you, my allies will be forced to respond. The debt is older than the throne. Elias stared at her like she had lost her mind. Footsteps approached from the corridor. Metal boots, drones humming. Elias grabbed Thalira's hand. We're leaving now. They ran. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and smelled of coolant and dust. Lights flickered overhead. Elias guided them through turns and junctions, following faded signs and his memory of old station maps. Behind them, voices echoed, closer now. Thalira did not stumble. She moved with surprising speed for someone recently injured. Her breathing was controlled. She had trained for this, Elias realized. She had escaped once already. She knew how to run from death. At a junction, Elias stopped and pulled open a panel with a manual latch. Inside was a crawl space. This goes under the docking ring, he said. We crawl until we hit a ladder, then climb into my bay. Thalira nodded and slipped inside without hesitation. Elias followed, pulling the panel shut behind them. The crawl space was dark. Elias moved by touch more than sight. His knees scraped metal. The air was stale. Somewhere above, he heard the distant thud of doors sealing and the buzz of security systems switching modes. They crawled for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Finally, Elias saw a faint glow ahead, a maintenance ladder. He pushed the hatch open carefully. The sound of station noise rushed in. They were inside a restricted maintenance room adjacent to the docking bay. Elias recognized the layout. His ship was 2 bays down, partially hidden by a cargo freighter, but station security was already there. 2 drones hovered near the bay entrance, scanning the hull of his ship. A station officer stood with a datapad, speaking to someone through an earpiece. Elias' mouth went dry. "We wait," he whispered. Thalira crouched beside him, eyes fixed on the scene. "They are looking for me?" "Yes," Elias whispered, "and if they open the cargo bay, they'll find evidence I pulled you in." Thalira's expression did not change, but her voice became colder. "Station security will sell us if offered enough." Elias hated that she was probably right. He scanned the room for options. There was an emergency release switch on the wall, used to vent sections in case of fire. There were also manual cargo tugs parked along the side rail. If he could distract the drones for just a few seconds, a new sound rose behind them, not security footsteps, something heavier, something formal. Elias glanced toward the corridor leading into the docking bay. A group of alien soldiers entered, moving in perfect formation. Their armor was white and gold, polished, reflecting the station lights. Their helmets were open, revealing faces that looked similar to Thalira's species, but older, harder. The station officer froze, suddenly nervous. Elias' eyes widened. "These aren't station people," he whispered. "Who are they?" Thalira's face went still like a statue. "Imperial Guard," she said softly. Elias' heart slammed against his ribs. "Your people?" "Yes," Thalira whispered. "They found us." Elias grabbed her hand again, ready to run, but Thalira held him back. "Wait," she said. The Imperial Guard commander stepped forward. He spoke to the station officer. The translator in Elias' wrist device caught fragments. "Authority, Imperial matter, stand aside." The station officer argued briefly, but his voice shook. He backed away. The drones moved aside like obedient pets. The Imperial Guard approached Elias' ship. Elias swallowed. "This is bad." Thalira's eyes stayed on the commander. "Not yet." The commander stopped directly in front of the ship's bay doors. He raised one hand. Then he did something Elias had never seen a military officer do. He knelt. Every soldier behind him knelt as well, armor clinking softly as they lowered themselves in perfect respect. Elias stared, stunned, certain his eyes were lying to him. Thalira's voice was barely audible. "The rite worked." Elias' mind struggled to catch up. "They're kneeling to you." Thalira looked at him, and there was something almost gentle in her gaze. "No," she said. "They are kneeling to the debt." The commander spoke, loud enough that even across the maintenance room Elias heard the words through the translator. "By ancient law, we recognize the bound guardian," the translation rendered stiff and formal. "Bring him forward with honor." Elias' knees felt weak. Thalira reached up and pulled her cloak back slightly so he could see her face. "You wanted no reward," she said, "but my empire does not understand kindness without structure, so it will give you one anyway." Elias could barely speak. I didn't ask for this." "I know," Thalira replied. The commander rose and looked toward the maintenance room as if he could sense them. His gaze was direct, unwavering. Elias felt the station suddenly become too small, too many eyes, too many rules he did not know. Thalira placed a steady hand on his arm. "Walk with me," she said. "If you run now, they will still follow you, but if you stand, the galaxy will be forced to see what you are." Elias swallowed hard. "And what's that?" Thalira's eyes shone faintly, the lines on her skin pulsing like quiet stars. "A human who saved a princess," she said, "without asking for anything." Elias took a slow breath, then another. His fear did not vanish, but something else rose under it. Stubbornness, maybe, or the simple human refusal to be crushed by other people's stories. He nodded once. Together, they stepped out of the maintenance room and into the docking bay's open light, walking toward the kneeling Imperial Guard and the ship that had started all of this. And every person who saw them, traders, officers, strangers from 100 worlds, stared because the galaxy had just been handed a new kind of problem. A human who did not want power. and an empire that had decided to give it to him anyway. The docking bay felt too quiet after the kneeling. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Traders stood frozen beside crates. Station officers avoided looking at anyone in white and gold armor. The Imperial Guard remained perfectly still, heads lowered, waiting. Elias Rook walked forward because stopping felt worse than moving. His boots echoed on the metal floor, every step loud in his ears. Thalira walked beside him, her posture straight, her face calm, though her skin still glowed faintly with those living lines. The guard commander rose when they reached him. He was tall, older than Thalira, with silver markings that showed long service. His eyes went first to Thalira, then to Elias, and he inclined his head, not deeply but with clear respect. "Princess Thalira," he said through the translator, "by the old laws we acknowledge your survival. By the same laws we acknowledge him." Elias swallowed. "You don't have to." The commander raised a hand, not in threat but in formality. "Human Elias Rook," he said, and Elias felt strange hearing his name spoken like that. "You are named Bound Guardian by ancient right. This is not a title of command, it is a title of recognition." "I don't want command," Elias said quickly. A faint ripple passed through the guards. The commander studied Elias with open curiosity. "So we have learned," he said. "That is why this is difficult." Thalira spoke then, her voice clear. "Commander Sarath, I am in your care now." Sarath bowed to her deeper this time. "Yes, Highness, the fleet waits beyond the station. We will escort you home." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "Escort," he repeated. "Does that include me?" Sarath looked at him again. "By law you cannot be detained, harmed, or commanded by imperial authority. By custom you are offered protection." "And if I don't want it?" Elias asked. Sarath's brow creased slightly. "Then you will confuse many people." Elias let out a short breath that might have been a laugh. "Get in line." The commander gestured and the guards rose smoothly. Station security finally began to move again, pretending very hard that nothing extraordinary had happened. Thalira turned to Elias. "You should come with us," she said, "at least until things settle." Elias glanced at his ship, at the patched hull and familiar shape. "I don't belong in palaces." "You belong where you choose," Thalira said, "but the galaxy will not allow you to be invisible anymore." Elias did not like how true that sounded. The escort ship was massive compared to Elias' salvage craft. White and gold surfaces reflected the stars. Inside, everything was clean, smooth, and quiet. The air smelled faintly of something floral and metallic. Elias felt like a stain walking through a polished room. Thalira noticed his tension. "You are not a prisoner," she said. "Feels close enough," Elias replied. They were given private quarters. Elias' room was larger than his entire ship cabin. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, unsure where to put himself. A moment later, a soft chime sounded and the door slid open. Thalira entered alone. "You can still leave," she said. Elias looked up at her. "Out into space, chased by people who think I'm valuable." "Yes," she said honestly. Elias leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "I just wanted to pull scrap and mind my own business." "And instead," Thalira said, "you reminded an empire of its oldest laws." Elias turned his head. "You really believe that?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "The life debt was created because once long ago someone like you existed among my people, someone who acted without calculation. The Empire has spent centuries pretending that story was a myth." Elias frowned. "So now I'm a symbol." Thalira's voice softened. "Only if you allow it." The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, and the stars stretched into lines again. Elias felt the familiar pull in his stomach, but this time it was mixed with something else. A sense that he was crossing a line he could not step back over. During the journey, he was summoned to a council chamber. He almost refused, but Thalira asked him to come, and he trusted her more than the walls around him. The chamber was circular, with a wide window showing deep space. Several figures waited inside, some holographic, some physically present. They wore different styles of dress, but all carried themselves with confidence that came from power. Elias stood near the entrance, hands at his sides. "This is unnecessary," he muttered. Thalira took her place at the center. "It is inevitable." A tall figure with pale skin spoke first. "So this is the human." Elias looked at them. "I have a name." The figure blinked, surprised. "Of course, Elias Rook." Another voice followed, sharp and cold. "Why is he here?" Thalira answered. "Because I am alive." A murmur spread through the chamber. "He risked nothing," one said. "He stumbled into fortune." Elias felt anger flare. I risked my life, he said. And I didn't know who she was. The chamber fell silent. That changed something. You did not know? Asked the pale figure. No, Elias said, and if I had, I would have done the same thing, the cold voice scoffed. Then you are either foolish or dangerous. Maybe both, Elias replied. Thalira raised a hand. Enough, this council will hear what matters. Elias Rook did not save me for gain. That fact cannot be argued away. The council members exchanged looks. Elias could almost see calculations happening behind their eyes. Then what do you want? One finally asked Elias. Credits, land, protection? Elias shook his head. Nothing. A few council members leaned forward. That is not an answer, the cold voice said. It is, Elias replied. I want to go back to my ship and live my life. Silence stretched. That may not be possible, the pale figure said slowly. You have become a point of balance. Elias stared. I'm a salvage pilot. You are a variable, another said. Your refusal to seek power makes you unpredictable. Elias felt a strange calm settle over him. Then predict this, I won't be your weapon. Thalira watched him with open pride. The council withdrew to private discussion. Elias stood alone with Thalira. You didn't have to challenge them, she said. Yes, I did, Elias replied. If I don't set boundaries now, they'll write my story for me. She nodded. You sound like a ruler, Elias grimaced. Don't say that. When the council returned, their tone had changed. By unanimous decision, the pale figure announced, Elias Rook is granted free passage across Imperial space. No command may be given to him. No debt may be demanded of him beyond what already exists. Elias frowned. That sounds like freedom with extra steps. The figure allowed a small smile. It is the most freedom we can offer without breaking ourselves. Thalira stepped closer to Elias. You see, you changed them. I annoyed them, Elias said. Sometimes, she replied, that is the same thing. The ship emerged from jump near the Luminary home system. Planets glowed like jewels. Traffic filled the space lanes, all moving with careful order. Elias felt small again. Before they docked, Thalira stopped him in a quiet corridor. There is something you should know, she said. My enemies will not stop. You are now part of the story they failed to end. Elias nodded. I figured. If you stay near me, you will be a target, she continued. And if I leave, Elias asked. Then you will still be a symbol, she said, but a distant one. Elias thought of his ship of empty wreck fields and quiet stars. Maybe distance is good. Thalira hesitated. I would prefer you stay. Elias met her eyes. I know, but I can't be your shadow. She accepted that with a slow nod. Then go, but know this, if you ever call, the Empire will answer. Elias felt the weight of that promise settle around him. They parted at the docking bay. Elias returned to his salvage ship, smaller than ever, but still his. As he powered it up, messages flooded his console. Offers, warnings, requests for interviews and alliances, he shut them all off. Elias Rook launched into space alone. Behind him, an empire adjusted its course. Ahead of him, the galaxy waited, uncertain, because one human had proven that kindness without expectation was not weakness. And that frightened a lot of powerful people.